Is such a problem for Blake? Why was that so shady?
Obtain cloud information, steal her personal communications that tipped them off to the fact that Friedman was potentially gearing up for a civil extortion lawsuit against them.
How does a name as recognizable as Blake Lively become caught in the crosshairs of something as tangled and unsettling as judicial scrutiny? Judge Lyman has made it clear there's more than enough here to warrant a closer look, and what's emerging is anything but favorable. At the core of this dispute sits Van Sen Incorporated, a little-known shell company that, at first glance, looked like just another nondescript business. But its involvement in issuing a subpoena connected to a John Doe lawsuit has pulled it into the spotlight, raising sharp questions about its true purpose and the methods behind its use. Judge Lyman isn't brushing this off as clerical errors or poor paperwork. He's demanding a full accounting of why this corporation was created in the first place, and what role it played in collecting sensitive information. The lack of openness from Lively's legal team has only deepened the court's unease, especially over the subpoena targeting private communications. While obtaining records like emails and texts isn't unusual in litigation, the path taken here has drawn heavy criticism for straying into questionable territory. In fact, Judge Lyman went so far as to remind both sides that the integrity of the legal process must come before convenience or success. That warning highlights just how seriously the court is treating the possibility that corners were cut. If it's proven that misconduct occurred, any material gathered through Van Sen could be thrown out entirely, striking key evidence from the record and leaving Lively's case without its foundation. That possibility carries weight far beyond legal filings. A collapse of evidence doesn't just weaken her courtroom position, it could erode the pristine public image she has cultivated for years. Every move by her legal team is now under a magnifying glass, with critics questioning whether aggressive tactics slid into outright abuse of process. Was Van Sen Incorporated a legitimate tool of discovery, or a calculated attempt to sidestep the very rules meant to ensure fairness? The suggestion that a Hollywood star of Lively's caliber might exploit legal loopholes for advantage is not only damaging, it risks overshadowing the case itself. And yet, the irony remains. The very communications obtained through these disputed methods are still central to her argument. The pressing question is whether those messages contain revelations powerful enough to justify the risks taken, or if her team gambled everything on evidence that could crumble before it's even considered. Whatever the outcome, the fallout threatens to reshape the entire storyline. The court, the media, and the public are left to wonder not just what these legal maneuvers reveal about the case, but what they reveal about the people behind them.
Attorney saying it was an abuse of process, that her counsel was using hidden corporate shields to evade transparency. Now, this is what yielded those text messages from Jennifer Abel, and then got it into the New York Times. These "we can bury everybody, we can bury anyone," the plan to destroy Lively. These are the texts that are the crux of the retaliation campaign. But the question is, was that phone, were these texts legitimately obtained, right? And now it's under intense scrutiny now that a lot of people, sleuths of people, figured out it was subpoenaed via this John Doe anonymous lawsuit labeled to a corporation called Van Zan. Is that a fair summary of where we are at this point up to now?
That's a pretty good summary, actually. Yeah, that's pretty good.
So why is this such a problem for Blake? Why was that so shady? I guess, can we start there? What is the legal issues with what Blake actually did there? Before we talk about the bigger ramifications, everything else, can you break that down a little more deeper?
Yeah. So to the extent when they shook her down and they cornered her in that office and they demanded her cell phone and they had these security guards there and they escorted her out the building and they have her stuff, they were entitled to have whatever business communications they had on that phone. What they were not entitled to do was go into her personal accounts, obtain cloud information, steal her personal communications that tipped them off to the fact that Friedman was potentially gearing up for a civil extortion lawsuit against them and use it for future litigation against them. That is potentially...
Her legal team turned to Van Sen as the vehicle to file a John Doe lawsuit and to issue the now infamous subpoena, moves that have drawn sharp scrutiny and ignited waves of controversy. Shell corporations are not uncommon in high-stakes legal battles. They're often used to mask identities or keep strategies hidden until the right moment, functioning like smoke screens in complex disputes. Yet their very presence tends to raise doubts about motive. In this case, The use of Van Sen incorporated seems designed to give the appearance of separation, creating distance between Lively and the more aggressive tactics of her defense. But Judge Lyman is openly skeptical. His questions cut to the heart of the matter. If the legal team believed in the strength of their case, why resort to an obscure entity to carry out such critical actions? Was this a precaution meant to shield Lively's carefully polished public image if the strategy backfired, or a calculated maneuver to dodge transparency altogether? The risks of such secrecy are impossible to ignore. When a shell company sits at the core of a legal strategy, the optics alone suggest concealment. And once a court begins peeling back those layers, what once looked like tactical discretion can quickly resemble deception. Matters become even more troubling when examining the subpoena itself. It targeted private communications belonging to Stephanie Jones, the former publicist for Jennifer Eel, a central figure in the broader dispute. At first glance, seeking those messages could appear logical, potentially bolstering claims of retaliation or misconduct. Yet Judge Lyman isn't focused on why the evidence was sought, he's focused on how. Were ethical guidelines skirted? Were legal boundaries crossed in the pursuit of advantage? If the answer is yes, the fallout could be severe. Evidence obtained through questionable channels is vulnerable to being thrown out, and without it, the foundation of Lively's argument may collapse. What's more, the damage wouldn't end inside the courtroom. Leaning on a shadowy corporate entity could leave the impression that Lively's camp prioritized secrecy over fairness, an image that clashes directly with the credibility she's worked years to cultivate. The judge has even suggested that misuse of legal process might be in play, a charge that, if validated, could echo far beyond legal filings and into the court of public opinion. And yet, everything hinges on one unanswered question: what exactly was hidden inside those subpoenaed messages? Reports indicate that Jones's communications may link directly to allegations of smear campaigns and retaliatory efforts, explosive claims that, if verified, could upend the entire case. The stakes could not be higher. These messages might hold the key to everything. But whether acquiring them was a strategic masterstroke or a disastrous gamble is a question only the court's final decision will settle.
Lyman hasn't been very Team Justin, it seems. He's been giving Blake a lot of, where the deposition's going to happen. All this stuff keeps falling in. Are you noticing that? Even now as content creators, there's one, it just doesn't seem like he's being very friendly to anybody other than accommodating Blake. Are you seeing that too? Or do you feel like he is being fair? What is your neutral perspective on that?
I feel where you would think that he's being, skewed towards the Lively side and unfair to the Friedman parties. But there has, a lot of that I think Friedman has brought upon himself through salacious PR drops that he's issued. The whole Exhibit A thing, the whole thing where he wrote a deposition basically accusing them of fraud, and that was on the docket, and it had to be removed from the docket. If you just objectively look and take those two things out, and you look at how he's ruled on some of the discovery stuff, he's been pretty even-handed. It's not enough to say that he is favoring one side or the other just yet. I think that he's been pretty fair. I think that the Van Zandt ruling compelling that information was a big hit for the Lively parties, a huge hit for the Lively parties. And the whole deposition thing, I know people are up and learn, oh, this is not fair. She gets home field advantage. If I'm doing a deposition, I don't care if I got to do it at my office or I got to do it in your office. You're still going to face cross-examination. I'm still going to depose you. I don't care if I'm not sitting in my comfortable seat. Like, I'm there to do a job. And so you want home field advantage? Fine. And I think maybe from Friedman's perspectives, like, look, she's asking for these protective orders and this is gonna potentially lead to other stuff. We just need to get the deposition done. They're trying to run out the clock potentially. Just do it at your office. So now there's no more room for her to say that, hey, this is unfair. They're trying to take advantage of me. They're trying to beat up on me at their office. They're trying to plant people in the deposition to make me uncomfortable. Said, look, let's just make you as comfortable as possible. Now you have no more excuses. Do the effing deposition.
It is almost a win for Justin, I feel like, because exactly, it's like, okay, yet another thing they're giving Blake, no excuses later that you had trouble, whereas Justin can claim, we gave her everything. What else can we still do? Yeah. So it is odd. But so final question, because they asked, could it go to jail? And you're like, it's unlikely. Is it more likely that Stephanie Jones could go to jail? And if Blake was more involved and actually pushed that stuff to happen, could there be any sort of criminal facing
they really gotta flesh out those facts, because to the extent that this was a directive of Stephanie Jones to get this stuff, then she would be the one directly implicated, including whoever were her agents potentially that knew they were doing criminal stuff. How do they tie that into Lively? That they were acting under Lively's direction? That would implicate Lively, but I don't see that connection yet. All I know is the theory is they shared those communications with Lively either at her direction or voluntarily, and I don't know which is which. It's not impossible that she's going to go to jail, but if there is a fact pattern that suggests that Lively ordered her to do these illegal theft of personal messages on Jones or Abel's phone, then potentially she could face criminal scrutiny through agency theory, I guess, potentially. But it's far-fetched, you know.
It is far-fetched.
I don't think she's going to be the one under the fire for this one.
Well, I appreciate you guys can check out Omar over the Tilted Lawyer. A final question: like, where do you feel like the sides stand right now? Justin obviously had his case dismissed. He's waiting. Yeah. Where do you put your points? Where are you betting on the outcome currently as we face things right now?
Well, if they got the retaliation smear campaign evidence and it's only about sexual harassment, then Baldoni is in prime pole position going forward for this thing because she's going to get obliterated on her sexual harassment claims. If it's not, and I still think that Baldoni at trial has the advantage because the jury doesn't care about, whether or not they're going to be able to litigate a cross-exam that's now been dismissed with prejudice, whatever. What is the sexual harassment claims? And then they're going to go through them point by point and see how ridiculous this is. I think most people on average, if you just poll people that have followed this case, are of the opinion that the sexual harassment claims are frivolous. And they're going to have, they have an uphill battle to fight at trial, convincing a jury that her complaints were reasonable or actionable. And so I really think, in spite of everything that's going on, that Baldoni, his cross complaint being dismissed notwithstanding, I think that he's in pole position going forward in this litigation. There's nothing left. There's no more screwing around. We're doing trial March of 26 with
evidence, but the very tactics used to secure it could turn into liabilities, exposing her team to severe criticism and undermining their credibility before the bench. The timing makes this all the more volatile. Public trust in celebrities is already fragile, and Lively herself is under heightened scrutiny due to her role in It Ends With Us. The fact that the texts allegedly outline patterns of retaliation against critics paints an even darker picture, one that suggests the fight wasn't limited to legal filings, but extended into carefully orchestrated efforts to silence dissent during a period of heightened controversy. If that narrative takes hold, the case stops looking like a routine legal clash and begins to resemble a full-scale PR war fought behind the scenes. Whether Lively personally directed these actions remains uncertain. What is clear is that the messages paint her team as aggressively focused on shaping and controlling public perception. Judge Lyman has already ordered these texts into evidence, underscoring how central they are to the proceedings, while simultaneously raising sharp concerns about the methods used to bring them to light. If any irregularities are confirmed, the court could strike the evidence entirely, transforming what looked like a breakthrough into a catastrophic misstep. This is what makes the texts so dangerous. They carry the power to either secure Lively's defense or unravel it completely. Beyond the courtroom, their contents could also expose the machinery of celebrity PR, showing just how far her team may have gone to manage her reputation. The central question becomes whether these legal risks were worth the gamble, or whether her team has unleashed a storm bigger than the one they sought to contain. And looming just beyond this development is yet another layer of controversy, one involving TikTok disputes, marketing misfires, and a frustrated creator whose voice could complicate the case even further.
We're excited for the casting, and it sounds like you're just more annoyed that all this is distracted from what's important, the theme of the book and the movie, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're not you're not an anti-Blake content creator or part of any retaliation campaign?
No, I had people ask me if I was paid to speak positively on Justin or negatively on Blake. That's the thing too with the whole smear campaign. I don't know if anybody made a video about the marketing before I did. I know that kind of started after mine blew up. Nobody ever reached out to me. Nobody ever paid me. Nobody ever asked me to do that. Nobody put that opinion in my head. I saw the marketing when I was looking into, what's going on with them. I saw the marketing, went, and made that video. That's what happened.
Right. And as someone who watched your videos, you weren't being mean towards Blake. I mean, you were calling out the tone deaf approach, which I think is valid. And I'm looking at it objectively, which I know you're not trying to get in the middle or pick any sides. it's frustrating. It was interesting because we also spoke about the fact that maybe there was some big idea of like, look, let's not make this movie about DV because maybe we'll get more people in the theaters that way. And then they might see that type of relationship on screen. And then actually we got to them in a clever way, secret way. But as smart as that might have been, that's not what Blake was doing either, was it?
I don't think it was.
When TikTok creators start becoming entangled in Hollywood lawsuits, it's a sign the drama has reached a level no one expected. That's exactly the case with Nadia G. Reeds, a well-known TikTok commentator celebrated for her blunt takes on books and media. Out of nowhere, she found herself swept into the storm surrounding Blake Lively's legal and PR troubles. Just days before the high-profile premiere of It Ends With Us, Nadia received a series of private messages urging her to scale back her criticism of the film. At first, she brushed them off as the usual noise from anonymous trolls. But the tone felt too deliberate, too calculated. The language suggested something more organized than random online pushback. It left Nadia with the uneasy sense that her growing influence was being tracked and possibly targeted. Her critiques weren't casual complaints. In several viral TikToks, Nadia accused the studio of mishandling Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel, reducing a raw and painful story about domestic abuse into a polished, romanticized spectacle. From casting choices to trailers to the glossy promotional push, she argued the marketing missed the point entirely, flattening the emotional weight of the book into something shallow. Those videos sparked wider debate across social platforms, quickly amplifying her voice into a movement for Lively, who not only starred in the film but was rumored to have had input in its marketing. This was more than inconvenient, it was dangerous. The timing of the messages Nadia received, arriving right as her videos hit peak visibility, made her believe someone connected to the larger PR machine was watching her closely. Though she stopped short of naming Lively's team directly, she emphasized that the phrasing of the warnings carried the hallmarks of insiders aligned with a coordinated strategy. If her suspicion holds, it points to a troubling tactic, using back-channel pressure to neutralize grassroots criticism before it gains momentum. For Nadia, that was particularly unsettling. Her commentary wasn't part of any organized smear, it was just an honest reaction from an independent creator. Yet the fact that she was treated as a threat underscored how fragile the film's image might actually be. This raises bigger questions about the boundaries of celebrity PR in the digital age. Aggressive marketing campaigns are nothing new, but pushing into the personal inboxes of independent creators suggests a level of paranoia that goes beyond standard image management. Nadia may not be the only one. Her account could represent just one fragment of a broader campaign aimed at suppressing dissent across social media. No matter how small the platform, if true, it reveals a hyper-controlling strategy, one less about championing the art itself, and more about silencing criticism that could dent the star's carefully curated brand. That's a dangerous precedent. It blurs the line between protecting reputation and undermining free expression, especially when the targets are everyday creators whose influence grows precisely because they aren't controlled by Hollywood systems. Ultimately, Nadia's experience raises a crucial question. How far was Lively's team willing to go to safeguard her image? And if this kind of maneuvering becomes normalized, what does it mean for the future relationship between powerful studios, digital creators, and the public discourse itself? Layered onto the existing courtroom drama, shell corporations, subpoenas, and disputed evidence, the intrusion into TikTok commentary adds a new and unsettling dimension. What began as a legal fight is now a clash over perception, power, and control, unfolding in both the courtroom and the algorithm.
We had some evidence, some screenshots even of text messages you were getting way back before the premiere as you were calling out Blake Lively's bad PR. Now, the reason this stood out for me, this was kind of shocking, and we're absolutely going to make this part of the doc, and I was going to sort of save it, but I was like, I don't really want to save it. There's so much important stuff out there. I want to make sure everybody knows what happened here. So that way, if anybody else got messages like this, please reach out to me, share them with me, privately, whatever you want to do, because this just feels super shady. Now, before we go to you now to explain it, I just want to, here's where it sort of started. You had a couple TikToks, innocent TikToks, very neutral, in my perspective. I watched them all again, just calling out, well, there's some weird drama, and you literally call, he's an unproblematic king, she's an unproblematic queen. You were team everybody, maybe a little shade at Colleen Hoover, because I guess you didn't love parts of the book, but, all very neutral and sort of your very well-spoken the way you did it. And then as you sort of got into it further, you called out the PR marketing, which a lot of people did. The fact that Justin was in the background and now it's all fun and fluffy, as you're saying here, and it's not raising awareness to the heart of the film. A very valid thing that a lot of people were noticing. And you were one of the earliest TikToks that I can see too, that was sort of calling this out. Now you netted almost 4 million views off this TikTok, correct?
Yeah, a little over that, I think.
Yeah, and so as I go through and we're scrolling through, so the TikToks, it definitely blew up. And you didn't lean in and start making your channel and it ends with us trauma channel. You did do some follow-ups, but as this is it. She did about 6 or so TikToks on the topic as they were exploding, as everybody was. And what's interesting is because it exploded, can you set this up before we go to the screenshot? You started getting messages from people asking you to pull the video, correct?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I got a message, it was prior to opening weekend, basically telling me that these things were going to come out about Blake Lively, that she was going to be a victim and that all the women on the set were actually victims, and that the last thing I would want to do would be to speak negatively on a victim, so that I should take my video down, and basically that allegations were going to come out against Justin.
Abuse of process is not a minor criticism, it carries the implication of intentional distortion of the justice system. If Judge Lyman rules that Van Sen Incorporated was used in that way, the fallout would strike Lively's case hard, but also ripple outward, setting a precedent within the Second Circuit and raising the bar for transparency in high-profile litigation. For Lively herself, the stigma could be permanent. The idea that she, or those working in her name, twisted the rules to gain advantage cuts directly against the image she has spent years polishing: approachable, trustworthy, and admired. Adding to the risk is the irony of the evidence itself. The text messages at the heart of this battle, rumored to detail smear campaigns and retaliatory tactics, might provide the sharp edge her team needs if admitted. But if the court finds they were gathered improperly, the entire strategy collapses in an instant. Instead of bolstering her defense, those communications could become the very reason her case falls apart. The court of public opinion may be even harsher. If the narrative shifts from a celebrity defending herself to a celebrity willing to bend rules, exploit loopholes, and pressure critics, the reputational damage could outlast any verdict. Hollywood scandals rarely fade quickly, and the perception of playing dirty can be more enduring than the outcome of a single lawsuit. What's unfolding here is larger than one case. It shines a spotlight on the growing intersection of celebrity PR and aggressive legal maneuvering, revealing how intertwined reputation management and litigation strategy have become. If Judge Lyman uses this moment to tighten expectations for transparency and evidence gathering, it could reshape the way high-profile cases are fought in the years to come, forcing greater accountability on even the most powerful teams. And yet, the story remains unfinished. With each new revelation, from hidden corporations to controversial subpoenas to leaked communications, the case peels back another layer of secrecy. The most consequential twists may still lie ahead. The real takeaway? This saga is no longer just about one actress's reputation. It's a reminder of how fragile the balance is between power, perception, and the law in Hollywood, and how quickly that balance can collapse once the rules are pushed too far.